Thank you all so much for being here. My name is Sean Maher. I serve you in the City of Oakland as the Citywide Communications Director. We are grateful to be here today to talk about the city's highest priority, public safety for our community. We are going to be led by our mayor. We will have some remarks from our council leadership, from our staff leadership. I'll come back then and open it up to questions. We are grateful to have so many folks here. If you have questions on other topics today, we're going to ask you to hold those until we break the program, and we'll take them on the side. But with that, we would like to open actually today with an invocation from Pastor Mike Wallace from Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church. Sir.
Can we all just bow our heads in a moment of prayer in our faith tradition? Gracious Father, we thank you so much for the tremendous progress that we have made in this city in the year 2025 in reducing gun violence and the crime that has plagued our city and our communities. We thank you for the leadership of our mayor, our law enforcement, our civic, community, and faith leaders who have all pulled together to bring about a change in our city, to make our city a safe place for everyone. We thank you for the progress, but now we know there's much work to be done, so we want to continue to do the work. We lift up those families of the victims and survivors who are still traumatized by the loss of a loved one. We continue to pray that we seek a peaceful resolution in an ever unending violent world. We now pray your peace over our city. Guide our mayor as she guides our city. Give us the strength to persevere in times like these. It is in Jesus' name we do pray. Amen.
Amen. Thanks so much, Pastor Wallace. And with that, please give a warm welcome to our Oakland's mayor, Barbara Lee.
Well, thank you very much. Good morning, and thank you all for being here. Again, I want to thank the press for coming to cover what is a good news story today. And Dr. Holly Josie, I want to thank everyone, our Department of Violence Prevention, our interim chief, James Beer, and OPD, our fire chief, Covington, our city administrator, Justin Johnson, our council president, Kevin Jenkins, members of our city council, our community partners, Ceasefire, our faith leaders, everyone here today who is helping our city move forward. As I always say, I want it to be the safest, the cleanest, and the greenest city in the country. And so the progress that we're here to discuss really is the result of all of your work and commitment. And so I want to, again, thank the media for covering this today. Now, before I get into the numbers, I want to acknowledge the shootings last Thursday and Saturday. Even with the historic progress, gun violence remains a challenge. And we're continuing our work with all of our partners to address it and to reduce it. And yes, of course, I would like to eliminate it like all of you would. Today, we want to share what progress was made in Oakland during 2025. Last year, Oakland recorded 67 homicides, the lowest number the city has seen in decades. Of course, that's 67 too many. Behind that number, though, lives are saved, families who didn't get the worst phone call of their life, young people who are still with us. And yes, we're working to find alternatives for our young people. We also saw significant reductions in gun violence across the board, including major drops in firearm robberies and firearm assaults. You'll hear more on the specifics from our public safety leaders. This progress, let me tell you, it did not happen by accident. It reflects an all-hands-on-deck approach to public safety that focuses on prevention, accountability, and partnership. Our Department of Violence Prevention and Ceasefire programs are doing critical intervention work, reaching people most at risk before violence occurs. And I want to thank Kaiser Permanente for their continued investment in Ceasefire including funding for life coaches in the Department of Violence Prevention. Our macro program continues to provide an alternative response to nonviolent crisis, connecting our most vulnerable residents to care. And I want to thank our Assembly Member Banta and State Senator Jesse Arreguín for helping us secure another $1 million for macro this year. Working with the City Council, we made smart, strategic investments in our police department in the 25-27 budget, funding 5 police academies over 2 years, $1.4 million for sideshow prevention details, and $700,000 for human trafficking operations. And I want to thank Councilmember Wong for her leadership in moving this task force forward. We also launched 2 academies this year and created a pre-academy program at Merritt College to build a local recruitment pipeline, which is extremely important. And we're grateful for the support of CHP and Governor Newsom and the deep collaboration with faith leaders and community organizations and our trusted messengers across Oakland and the region. The results show that when we invest in proven strategies and work together, lives will be and can be saved. But numbers alone are not the finish line. For families who have lost loved ones, statistics offer no comfort. Our focus remains on what comes next, continuing to build on what works, really pushing forward with urgency, and making Oakland again the safest city in America. Finally, I just want to mention one thing with regard to traffic safety. You know, traffic safety is public safety. OCDOT and AC Transit collaborated to implement street safety improvements to address severe and fatal crashes that have persisted, mind you, in neighborhoods such as International Boulevard. Because of this work, pedestrian fatalities for this corridor are down from 7 in 2023 to 0 in 2025. Zero. OCDOT has been installing speed safety cameras at 18 locations throughout Oakland to address speeding drivers, a primary factor in fatal traffic crashes. Traffic fatalities have been down every year for the last 3 years. From 2022 to 2025, fatalities have decreased by more than 33%. And that's a big deal. These are lives that have been saved. So I want to thank all of our city employees, our city administrator, our council, everyone, our public safety leaders, our community partners, for being here today and for doing the hard work that they do each and every day. And they now will walk you through the strategies behind these results and what's ahead. Thank you all again for being here.
Thank you so much, Mayor Lee, for your leadership. We are now grateful to we want to recognize we have several members of the City Council here with us today. They'll be represented here at the podium by Council President Kevin Jenkins.
So thank you so much. Good morning. I want to echo the mayor's sentiments for the 5 victims that lost their lives this year. And as the mayor said, 1 homicide is one too many. And so we will continue to have work to do. Right? That doesn't mean that we cannot acknowledge the great progress that was made last year. So I want to thank Dr. Yoshi, the mayor, Chief Beer, all the men and women of OPD, Chief Covington, City Administrator Justin Johnson, and the City Council and our faith leaders for showing what can happen when we're all rowing in the right direction, when we're working together as a city. So a 25% reduction in violent crime doesn't happen by chance. So it happens when you have a mayor, a city council, OPD, DVP, community organizations, and residents that work collaboratively with shared focus and vision. So the city is working very diligently on our public safety strategy. We're working very diligently to get out of the NSA while having constitutional policing. We want to support our police officers that are doing their job in a constitutional way. And I'm thankful to the mayor for creating the position of Chief constitutional officer. Is that what it is, Mayor? Yeah. To ensure that we get out of the NSA, but in a safe way and making sure that our officers are doing the right thing. So I also want to thank Governor Newsom, who has been a tremendous partner to the city of Oakland for deploying the CHP and helping us with those resources. I also want to thankful for license plate readers, those tools that have helped us along the way. The data tells the story that robberies are down. Firearm robberies have been cut in half. Carjackings are down by 50%. Commercial burglaries are down by 47%. Vehicle theft is down by 39%. And this all happens when we have smart budgeting. And so I want to thank the Council President's budget team that I was not on, that was led by Councilmember Ramachandran and Councilmember Brown, but the members are Councilmember Unger and Councilmember Charlene Wong. We invested in 678 officers. We invested in 5 police academies, and we want to ensure that people want to come here and work in Oakland, and I'm thankful for the mayor and Councilmember Wong on working on a recruitment strategy so that people will come here to work in Oakland and so that we can compete with the other jurisdictions. So as the mayor said, to families that have lost victims and family members, statistics, they're just statistics, right? Crime is a feeling. Do you feel safe leaving your house at 3 o'clock in the morning? Until that answer is yes, we still have work to do, but we can celebrate the progress in the meantime. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Council President. And of course, you heard reference to the work by Councilmember Ramachandran and Councilmember Wong. We're also joined today by Councilmember Unger, who had a career in public safety before joining us as a policy leader, and Councilmember Gaio, our longest serving council member, who's made public safety a priority for many years as well. We are going to move now to hear from the leader of our Department of Violence Prevention, Dr. Chief Holly Joshi.
I need these now, y'all. So, some of you have been around for a while know I didn't used to need these, but here we are. So what a time to be a part of the City of Oakland's leadership team. I was asked to come back 2 years ago and could not be prouder of working with the fine men and women, including the mayor's office, the city council, and city administrator. In 2025, Oakland's Department of Violence Prevention played a key role in the city's comprehensive approach to public safety. Our approach recognizes gun violence as a public health issue. We believe that most people caught in cycles of violence want a way out, and with the right supports and opportunities, can reinvent themselves. With that understanding in mind, we work to identify and engage the individuals most likely to draw or drive gun violence. Our violence interrupters work day and night on the ground to mediate conflicts before they become violent and to prevent retaliation during highly vulnerable moments. Life coaches, who are intensive case managers, work closely with participants to identify the factors driving their participation in conflicts and violence and implement strategies to reduce risk, build safety nets, and increase protective factors, including creating access to safe and supportive housing and employment supports. DVP staff work with Oakland's most vulnerable to shift mindsets and behaviors, reduce recidivism, prevent victimization and perpetration. We work with our clients to create pathways out of violence into health, stability, and safety. Again, I'm grateful for Oakland City leadership, Mayor Lee, City Administrator Johnson, and the council for understanding the need for a comprehensive approach to community safety. Our community-based organizations work side by side with us in neighborhoods. The other public safety entities, including the Oakland Police Department and the Alameda County Probation Department, our community leaders, including our faith-based partners, who brought the focused deterrence approach to violence prevention in Oakland, our funders, who believe in and have invested in a holistic approach, including Kaiser, the Greenlight Fund, the County of Alameda, and the State of California. Together, we've made significant progress towards our shared vision of a safe Oakland. This collaborative model is working. 2025 represents the second year in a row the city has experienced significant double-digit reductions in crime and violence. Of course, we are not here to wave a victory flag, but instead here to remain accountable to effective strategies, knowing that it is our responsibility to make Oakland a safe and thriving city. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief Joshi. As the city works on public safety, we can't do it alone. The partnership with the community that we are all here to serve is foundational and essential and critically important to the progress that we make together. Community members can get involved by doing something as simple as calling the city and reporting something when you see it, volunteering, or becoming part of an organization that partners with us officially in this work. We're joined today by a representative from one of those groups, Faith in Action East Bay. Please give a warm welcome to Jay Mitchell.
My name is Jay Mitchell. For the press, that's JayMitchell. And I am a resident of Oakland and have been a resident of Oakland since 1988. I've been specifically living in the Adams Point neighborhood by Lake Merritt since 1994, which means that I have seen a lot, probably more than most people should, and heard probably more, and happy to report that my wife and I and my son, who's an adult and lives with us, no longer has to worry about gunfire coming through our apartment. And my wife, who has PTSD from that kind of action after growing up in San Francisco in the Bayview, Hunters Point, when we first arrived in our apartment, when we got married, it was a very big problem for her. I want to thank the Kaiser Foundation, as others up here have made mention that the Kaiser Foundation has helped tremendously in funding the ceasefire strategy and funding the critically important life coaches. The progress and success of ceasefire strategy belongs to the entire city, and that's because gun violence impacts the entire city. The ceasefire strategy was brought to Oakland by community members starting in the year 2012 and has been implemented with fidelity since the year 2023, which is why we've seen in the last 2 years double-digit year-to-year drops in gun violence and serious crime. In these past 2 years, Oakland has had record-breaking reduction in gun violence. And this is not just a vibe, but the data proves this, and this is very important, that we need to continue with the strategy because eventually the vibe will reach business leaders, people who are interested in coming to Oakland to start their businesses, and the residents will feel safer because they are safer. Community members have been responsible for advocating, monitoring, and driving the fidelity to the ceasefire strategy. Our organization, Faith in Action East Bay, tries hard to schedule research meetings, especially during budget hearing sessions and budget hearing before the research, to make sure that ceasefire is funded and supported by not just the community, but the entire government of Oakland. These historic reductions in gun violence proves that when we all work together, citizens, elements of the government, even the media, that together meaningful change and improvements in the lives of people who live in our city is possible. And this is true because public safety is truly a shared responsibility. One agency, one community organization cannot do this work alone. Ceasefire is a partnership based And each of its partners are committed to the strategy, whether they're with OPD, DVP, Department of Violence Prevention, the Probation Department of Alameda, Faith in Action, and other faith-based and or civic community partners, including individual faith leaders and the Alameda County Health System. I want to take a short time to also note that there are CBOs in our city who prevent people from becoming high-risk individuals. They are helping to prevent by providing job training, education supports, and keeping people from entering what we call the life. And thus, there's a prevention part and an intervention part that is helping to drive down these numbers of gun violence in our city. The success Oakland has achieved would not be possible without the dedication of all the community partners, including faith leaders. In the room today is Pastor Todd, who's the Executive Director of Faith in Action East Bay, Jim Hopkins, Minister Tugwell, and other people, Reverend Dixon, who's also on the board at Faith in Action East Bay. And so I also want to point out that people who put their lives out and on Friday nights walk in high risk and hot zones in the city to ask the citizens of those neighborhoods for peace and to put down their guns. There's also outreach workers, life coaches, violence interrupters, and service providers that need to have a round of applause for their work. When we talk about the success associated with the ceasefire strategy, what we're really talking about is saving lives and ending the cycle of generational grief and disruption with each individual death or each individual mugging or each individual carjacking that happens at the point of a gun. On a personal note, I became interested in this issue in the early 2000s when I was converting to Catholicism, and my teacher, Karen Miller, the late Karen Miller, and Father Jason Landeza, who's the chaplain. Anyway, I was at a organization, I was in prayer service for the survivors of homicide victims, and I saw the devastation even years after deaths. I will wrap up, and I'm sorry I went long, but the work of reducing gun violence must go on, and we must try to get another year of double-digit reduction for this year of 2026. And we must remain committed to faithfully supporting and funding the ceasefire strategy. Thank you.
We are delighted to bring up next to the podium the City Administrator for the City of Oakland, Justin Johnson.
Good morning, Justin Johnson, City Administrator. So I'll be very brief. So our highest priority as a local government is the safety of our community, and that is our North Star and continues to be our North Star every single day. In 2025, we faced enormous fiscal challenges as we prepared for a 2-year budget cycle that would close a projected shortfall of $265 million over 2 years. And it goes without saying, I have to publicly once again acknowledge President Jenkins and Councilmember Ramachandran. In December of last year, as they stepped into specific leadership roles, they were very clear about our budget process and what the priorities are. And they set a cornerstone for how we would move as an organization. So I want to say thank you. And it goes without saying, they've certainly put the pressure on us again this year as we look to our budget process to make sure that public safety is our highest priority. Our priority in the administration and the priority of our elected leaders was the same: close this shortfall while investing heavily in public safety. These investments supported the team of leaders, employees, and programs who deserve recognition today for progress Oakland is making. As we mentioned, the Department of Violence Prevention, we maintained our ceasefire program, we funded 5 police academies, and many of the data that you all have heard this morning, I certainly want to make sure that I acknowledge and we highlight to include our investments on our sideshow details, et cetera. These investments reflect our commitment to building on this progress. Looking ahead in 2026, with the leadership of Mayor Lee, my office assigned Assistant City Administrator Michelle Phillips to develop the new position of Constitutional Policing Administrator. And I apologize, ACA Phillips could not join us today, but I also want to acknowledge several of our Assistant City Administrators who are in the room, our newest ACA Chuck. Hey, Chuck, raise your hand. Yeah, Chuck Jones, Chuck Baker, and also ACA Betsy Lake should be in the room. I'm also Assistant City Administrator Phillips, and also our Deputy City Administrators. The reason I want to highlight them because at the end of the day, every department in the city of Oakland has a role to play with respect to public safety. And the mayor was very clear. She's expecting us to break down the silos across this organization. And it's important for all of our departments to understand that is a priority across the board to make sure that they fully understand the role that they play with respect to reducing crime here in Oakland, and also being supportive partners across the spectrum of the city. So in closing, I want to thank our elected leaders for their incredible support and leadership, as well as our labor partners, our department leadership for delivering the strategies we need to be successful, the community partners who are fundamental and absolutely necessary to this work, and I want to thank our city employees who come to work every single day to meet the highest calling of service before self. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Our next speaker is Oakland's Interim Chief of Police, James Beer.
Thank you, City Administrator Johnson, for your guidance, and thank you, Mayor Lee, for your leadership, and for all our electeds, and Chief Joshi and Chief Covington. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for all being here. I'm Chief James Beer of the Oakland Police Department. I want to point out we do have a new ceasefire director, Director Jointer, who's sitting right up here in front. She's hit the ground running and has an established relationship throughout the community and well within the police department, so I'm excited to work with you going forward. You're welcome. Today, I want to reflect on public safety when it comes to Oakland in 2025. The people behind the work make our city safer. And as stated previously, it's not just one department. It's not just the Oakland Police Department. We're not going to arrest our way out of this. We know this. We're 100% invested in the ceasefire strategy. But first, I want to extend my deepest gratitude to the women and men of the Oakland Police Department, who work tirelessly every single day to reduce violent crime in our community. Their professionalism, courage, and dedication to our community it does not go unnoticed, and I want to thank them from the bottom of my heart. Last year, our officers cleared or answered or followed up on over 203,000 calls, demonstrating their commitment to our community around the clock, 24/7, 7 days a week. Public safety in Oakland reached a milestone in 2025 as the city saw a historic low in homicides with 67 lives lost. And as stated before, that's 67 lives too much. Those are lives that affect not just their families, but our entire community and continue on for generations. But that is a significant reduction and a decline we haven't seen for decades. We also saw a significant reduction in crimes across all major crime categories. All the statistics I will share compared to the full 12 months of 2024 to the full 12 months of 2025. When we're specifically talking about violent crime, if you include all Part 1 crimes, those are homicides, non-fatal shootings, aggravated assaults, rapes, robberies, that's a combined decrease of 25%. A breakdown, homicides decreased 22%. Of note, in 2025, our homicide section cleared 95% of all cases. So that's a message for everyone out there. If you engage in violent crime, we will catch you and we will bring you to justice and you will be charged. Non-fatal shootings down 25%. Robberies down 43%. We are grateful for the collaboration with our local, state, and federal law enforcement partners, the Alameda County District Attorney's Office, and our ceasefire strategy, as well as all the other city departments, because this does take the entire family of Oakland. We made significant progress in keeping illegal firearms off of our streets. In 2025, the Oakland Police Department recovered over 1,200 firearms. This is helping prevent future acts of violence and keeping guns off the street and access to our children. With many of these recoveries resulting in the proactive police work of our officers and partnerships with our community members. When I say partnerships with our community members, over 200 of those guns were turned in by our community, whether it was the gun buyback operations or proactively coming to the police department to turn them in on their own accord. I think it's also noteworthy to talk about the technology. It plays an essential role in solving crimes within this last year. The automatic license plate readers, which have already been mentioned, ShotSpotter, drones, are helping our officers respond faster and solve cases more efficiently. Some people, they perceive that there's a lack of reporting of crime within our community. That's been a constant throughout the years. The difference this past year, for the last 18 months, is that we're proactively going out there, rebuilding the trust within our community, encouraging them, everybody in our community, to report it if they are a victim of a crime. We're utilizing the technology to report crimes that in the past have not been reported, such as ShotSpotter. We're utilizing the automated license plate reader to proactively investigate robberies, to include assaults, as well as burglaries and the sideshow. If I were going to talk about the sideshow, thanks to the mayor and the city administrator, we were able to reestablish our sideshow detail. It's extremely important that we also leverage our partnerships within the county and the state. And I do want to acknowledge the Alameda County Sheriff's Department as well as the California Highway Patrol. The difference this year, we seized over 291 vehicles, and not just the 96 that were seized at sideshows. And I want to make it very clear, our investigations don't stop that night. We use those ALPR technology as well as other surveillance footage and undercover investigative means to continue the investigations long after the sideshows ended, which resulted in 195 more towed cars. And we responded to places throughout California. So if you come into our community and think you're going to get away that night and drive home, we'll show up in your driveway and take your car. We also utilize drones. We deployed them 156 times to assist with disaster management, hazardous situations, such as armed and barricaded suspects and high-risk search warrants, and of course, sideshows. While we've made significant reductions across all major crime categories, there's an important work ahead, as stated as such. Our job, our mission is not done till we wake up 1 January, and hopefully in the near future, and we'll come back to report that there's been 0 homicides. As I look forward to 2026, I see a bright glimmer of hope, a bright light, that we will see additional double-digit reductions. But more importantly, building those relationships with our community. The Oakland Police Department remains committed to those partnerships, technology, and the data to reduce violent crime, hold offenders accountable, and increase public safety throughout Oakland. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chief Beer. Our last speaker, and then we'll open it up to questions. Please give a warm welcome to Oakland's Fire Chief, Damon Covington.
Good morning. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. I want to talk just a little bit about Oakland Fire Department and some of our historic accomplishments from 2025. I'd like to start by saying thank you to Mayor Lee, City Administrator Johnson, Council President, and council members. 2025 was a big year for the Oakland Fire Department. I'd be remiss not to say this time last year we were staring at closing 7 firehouses, which would have been catastrophic for, not just for the fire department, but for the safety of our community. And we turned from that through our city leadership, through our council president and the council members to being able to open all of our firehouses for the first time in over 2 decades. So that was a major accomplishment. A lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of meeting. Local 55 and President Seth Euler, it took a lot of heads coming together to figure this out, to figure the budget out and keep us operational and get all of our firehouses open. Also, another accomplishment we had last year, putting some very good federal dollars to good use, we welcomed a new fireboat. You guys haven't had a chance to see it. We're going to have a big ceremony for it. We're still learning how to use it. It's a lot bigger than the boat we had before, but we're going to invite you guys out. That was a huge win for us. It's a regional asset. It makes us a lot safer from our port to every type of water rescue, anything that happens in our jurisdiction. We're much more prepared behind that because of that. Our macro program is doing great things. In just 3 years, OFD Macro continues to grow and expand its model, and it's a key resource for the city of Oakland. Macro just recently surpassed 10,000 calls for service in the 3 years of its existence, which is quite an accomplishment for Macro. It really is at the cutting edge and leading the nation in what these alternative response models can do. The program connects residents to care while allowing police to focus on violent crime and fire crews to respond to emergencies that require emergency medical support. Macro has become a critical part of Oakland's comprehensive all-hands-on-deck approach to public safety and community wellness, and secured $1 million in state funding in 2025 through Mayor Lee's partnership and Assemblymember Bonta and Senator Aragon, allowing us to continue to respond to our citizens of Oakland. So I just wanted to briefly talk about a couple of different accomplishments we have for Oakland Fire for 2025, and we're looking to a very bright 2026. Thank you.
Gotta ask Sean, can I get out of line for just a minute? One thing I wanted, and I'm thinking the gratitude, first of all, that I have for everybody who has helped us continue on this trajectory. But this is January, and I'm thinking of Dr. King. And Dr. King reminded us that peace is not just the absence of tension, but it's the presence of justice. And here in Oakland, we have all hands on deck. Accountability for those who commit crimes, but also looking at how we create jobs and help with education, healthcare, and all of the social determinants of what we need to deal with here in the city for those most vulnerable, young people especially. And I want to ask Dr. Josie to come up because we have secured about $1 million, and she'll tell you a little bit about this, for a Peace Academy and how this relates to the continuation of the reduction of gun violence. Dr. Josie. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Lee. So the Peace Academy, real briefly, was envisioned 2 years ago by my staff. So the violence interrupters, life coaches, and gender-based violence specialists that are in communities on the ground day in and day out, the folks that we call inside the DVP the credible messengers. They are from Oakland, they're from community, they have deep roots here, deep connections, lots of relationships of trust. One of the things many of them do not have, though, is credentials or access to traditional pathways of education. So they were asking for more tools in their tool belt to include a comprehensive training program. And so we went out and we met with several funders, and the Greenlight Fund stepped into the gap and is giving us $1 million for a technical assistance partnership with the Urban Peace Institute in Los Angeles, who is known in the field of community violence intervention work as experts on building peace academies. So there will be a 16-week, fully loaded Peace Academy for street-level violence interventionists in the city of Oakland beginning in 2027. So 2026 will be the year that we build the Peace Academy, and 2027 we will launch the pilot. Thank you, Mayor Lee.
Thank you so much, Mayor Lee and Chief Joshi. All right, we're going to take it over to questions. We'll ask folks to raise their hands. We'll call on you one at a time. Please say your name and the outlet that you're with. Please keep your questions to the topic at hand. If you have questions on other topics, we'll come to those when we close the program. And we'll start with Oakland side.
Hi, my name is Rosalind Romero. I work at the Oakland side. This question is more for the Oakland Police Department. So, Interim Police Chief Beer, you mentioned that the homicide unit cleared, was it 95% of all homicide cases last year? I recall that there were some units that were being disbanded and reassigned to patrol. Is that still an issue?
So for our homicide section, no. That is true. They did clear 95% of all homicides in 2025. And actually going forward in 2026, although very tragically we've lost 5 lives from our community, I can tell you there were 3 separate incidents, 2 of which have already neared resolved. We just arrested one of the subjects that committed the murder on the 2700 block East 20th. The other individual that shot and killed someone that showed up to his business at the 4500 block of Market Street, he actually cooperated with the investigation, showed up, and that was ruled self-defense. And then we had the triple at 85th and International. We actually have solid leads due to technology and cooperation and collaboration with community members and business leaders. We have people identified in that, and we already have made arrests leading into that investigation. I expect more arrest warrants for those involved in the actual shooting real soon. Patrol is the backbone of the police department. We have to staff patrol. That is the main focus and mission of the police department, is to respond to 911 calls and those calls when our community asks for help. Other units have been, I would say, absorbed into patrol. Our homicide section is still very well staffed in comparison to all the other sections. Staffing is an issue, and that's why technology is one of the major, I would say, resources right now that we're bridging that gap. But we are committed to investigating homicides and all violent crimes and staffing patrol.
We'll come to with the coat in the back, and then we'll come to East Bay Times.
Hi, my name is Jimana Lopez. I'm a reporter with Telemundo in the Bay Area, and my question is for Mayor Barbara Lee and the police. So the first question is, you know, a lot of people are wondering why it took you until today to talk about the 5 homicides. I mean, people are wondering why you didn't X about it, you know, a few days earlier. That's one of the questions. Another one, I want to talk about the stats, because we keep hearing that numbers are down based on this. But I go to East Oakland literally almost every day, and it's a whole different story. It's a whole different reality. I mean, the problem is that these people are not reporting crimes. They're afraid. They give up on police. They tell me, we don't even talk to police because they don't even come here and talk to us. So we add the immigration situation to that. People are not reporting that. So what can you guys do? Because people are not believing these numbers. They are saying, we are dealing with a lot of violence, we're just not reporting. And last question for Barbara Lee. On December 10th, I sent your office an email with 2 letters from 2 families. They lost their sons last year due to gun violence. Your office told me they were gonna call these families. I called the families this morning, no answer from your office. So I hear you speak about public safety, how the community is number 1, your priority, but the Latino community, and I'm speaking on behalf of them because I'm Telemundo, they're not seeing that from your office. So you can answer that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So questions from Telemundo about acknowledgement of the 5 homicides this year, responsiveness to victims of crime, and the question of reporting the folks who are not reporting violence that they're observing in their community. Thank you for those questions.
Yeah, thank you for that, and rest assured, I'll track down the 2 calls and we'll make those calls. Thank you for calling it to my attention. And secondly, with regard to the homicides, we did issue a statement. Sorry you didn't get a copy of it, but we have spoken before today on the tragic deaths that occurred through gun violence over the last week.
Thank you. And regarding the stats, I don't know if that's with you.
Thank you. That was one of the things I addressed when I first came up to the podium. Actually, non-reporting has been an issue for generations. It has been a constant throughout the years, and we do recognize that. It is a little bit more difficult now with what's going on with the immigration enforcement piece. I will say that we've actually proactively increased our presence within the community and reaching out. And in addition to that, we're using the technology to bring those crimes forward that are not being reported, such as ShotSpotter that registers the gunshots, and we respond to all those ShotSpotter calls, collect the evidence, and investigate further even when people don't either they fear reporting it because of retaliation against the criminals, or there's the fear of the police. We, again, have increased our outreach to the community, not just the East Oakland community, but throughout the whole city. And, personally, I've been out there and I'm looking at people not just in uniform, but outside of uniform with my wife and my kids walking amongst the community in East Oakland as part of the ceasefire thing. And our officers are building more relationships now than they ever had. But it is a work in progress, and we continue to still have to work towards that, for sure, 100%. The stats, unfortunately, they are based on what is reported, but again, that is something we've struggled with throughout the years. There's always been instances where people haven't reported. Again, what we have now that we didn't have before is the technology to proactively bring it forward when people can't or they just don't trust to bring it forward. You're welcome.
Yeah, and let me just add to that. Oakland is a sanctuary city, and we recognize what's taking place as it relates to ICE. And our police department will not cooperate with ICE. And so many of the issues that we're addressing in our immigrant community, we are handling with that balance also. Just rest assured that we're working to make sure that our immigrant community is protected. We're raising funds also for our immigrant community because we know many are fearful for even going to the grocery store or to go to health centers or to go to the doctor. And so it's something that we're working with our community groups and the city in terms of just the protection of our immigrant community from ICE raids. Mm-hmm.
Really appreciate the questions. Thank you again. We'll come now to the East Bay Times.
Hey, Showman from East Bay Times. Question for Chief Jay Rashid, if that's okay. Just wondering if you could be a little bit specific about ceasefire's progress since you rejoined the city a couple years ago. Violence was really through the roof at that time. It seems like gang violence has come down. These call-in meetings, some of the strategies you're implementing, could you be a little bit tangible about what's changed among gangs, among warring gangs, how violence has kind of been brought to peace? Just be good to know.
Sure. So ceasefire-focused deterrence strategy is the most data-driven, researched gun violence prevention and intervention strategy in the country. And I think many of us know that it was first brought by the faith-based leaders in 2012, and it showed significant reductions for 5 years. So within 5 years, we had a 46% reduction, and then essentially for a myriad of reasons, the city started walking away from divesting from the strategy beginning in 2019. So in 2023, the city reinvested in the strategy, both in terms of faith-based leaders being brought back to the table for accountability, the strategy being funded, the police department setting up the units again, and the Department of Violence Prevention pivoting the way in which we engage folks. I think what's most important to understand about the strategy is that it is data-driven and people self-select into the strategy. So we pay attention to the data every single week. We review the homicides and shootings, really trying to pay attention to what's driving those particular acts of violence and then trying to get ahead of retaliation. So it's about identifying the small group of people that are most likely to either be a victim or a suspect in a gun violence incident within the next 90 days. So that is what we're coming to do every week at the ceasefire table run by the mayor's office. The experts in the field estimate that in Oakland at any given time, there's between 240 and 350 people that are most at risk of being involved in gun violence. So the strategy is specifically meant to identify and then intervene in the lives of those specific people. So to your question about what changed since 2023 is that as a body, as a city leadership team, working with our community-based leaders, is that we've focused our efforts on those specific individuals. So being extremely focused and extremely intelligence-led, of course, is always important, but very important in the situation where we have a budget crisis and low numbers in all departments. So that is really the biggest change. And you mentioned the call-ins. The call-ins citations and the custom notifications are the first point of communication between the system and the individuals that have been identified. And whether it's at a call-in or a custom notification that happens most oftentimes at the individual's house, the message is always the same, and that is that you've been identified as at high risk for either going to prison or being killed. We don't want that for you, and here are the other options and resources. Is that helpful?
Yeah, is there a specific instance of gun violence in the past year where, because of your intervention, you're able to prevent retaliation? Like, if you point to like a murder that took place in a certain month and say, well, that was a big success. That was just a slew of gun violence, but because we intervened, it'd be great to have a little bit of specificity around certain crimes if you're able to disclose that.
Every single gang and group related homicide that has occurred in the city of Oakland in the past 2 years, violence interrupters and life coaches have worked to prevent retaliatory violence. And the vast majority of those have been successful, thus leading to the 50% reductions in 2 years. Thank you.
Let me, I just got to add one point to this, and that is this. Well, you all know I served in Congress 27 years. I know many representatives, but I also know many mayors around the country. And I can tell you with certainty that Oakland is a trendsetter in terms of our coordination with the police department, Department of Violence Prevention and Ceasefire. I get calls, emails, contacts from mayors all around the country asking, what are you doing in Oakland that is allowing for this to happen? And so a lot of residents don't believe this, but Oakland is seen as the North Star in terms of what we're doing. And that's why we want to keep on track and keep this work coordinated and the partnerships together, because not only are we working to make sure that we end gun violence and violence in general and crime in Oakland, the rest of the country is looking at us and how we are doing this. So thank you again.
Chief Beard, did you want to add anything to that? Thank you.
I can give a specific example. Can't obviously get in too much detail about it because some of the people are still in play. But as far as the ceasefire strategy, one example was in the past year, we did have 2 separate groups that were involved in illegal drug trade as well as gambling and nefarious other acts. They ended up being at odds. Both of them, the leaders of both fractions, were arrested and were currently in custody. And while that was going on, there was others involved in their organization that started a series of shootings throughout the city of Oakland. Working with our partners, working with the community, we were able to identify those 2 fractions. We ended up pulling both members out of custody. One was on a CDC hold, the other one was in custody for another offense, and brought them here to City Hall. And we sat them down so they could see each other face to face, and we told them the truth. We told them that we understood what was going on, the dynamics of the basically dispute that they had. We let them know that there's going to be resources sent out, violence interrupters, as well as other resources for people that were in their organization. Should they accept those, great. If not, they were going to be held accountable, and those that were committing the acts of violence were going to be held accountable. We ended up seeing a reduction, I think it was somewhere close to 70% reduction in gunfire in the city of Oakland for a significant period of time. So it did prevent, I believe, homicides because of that strategy. That's just one specific success story. But there's many more. I wish I could get in more detail with you, but I can't because there's still some open investigations involved in it. But that's one small example.
Thank you, Chief. We'll come to ABC.
So I'm Sarasa with ABC 7 News. You guys have laid out how this has been a collaborative effort, but there's another set of data that shows a different story. I mean, just in August of last year, Oakland was ranked by the U.S. News and World Report as the 2nd most dangerous city in the United States. A lot of people, we've been talking about, in Council One with you yesterday, about perception of crime. If it was 5-10% reduction, people can understand. A lot of people really questioning how you got 30-40%. Can you guys maybe explain some of that, some of the perception around it, and then also maybe to Chief Joshi, is there something specifically that's really working in violence prevention? Because it seems like that's been new, that in over the past 2 years that you can really pinpoint to say this is really what's helping drive down some of these numbers.
So, question about the difference between the numbers that are being released and the perception of safety in Oakland. Important question, and some more specificity about crime prevention or violence prevention.
Intervention,
Prevention. Great.
So with regards to the data is it's the data, right? So we're just going to report what's being reported. The FBI actually tracks all the data. They report separately as to what is reported to them. I will say 67 homicides is 67 homicides. Sadly, we can't change the data on that. The shootings, those are shootings. Those are reported whether people come forward or not. Those are recorded from our shot spotter data. We might miss some because if a shooting occurs in a vehicle or in a building and it doesn't register. But I think it's important to see, and some of the media outlets here have already reported that there's been 57 murders in 2025. And that's the lowest we've seen even further back in decades. We don't report that number. We're reporting the higher number of 67 because those are also 10 homicides, whether they're self-defense or other. But those are 10 lives lost from our community regardless. So the data can be interpreted, as to your point, in many different ways, but through the direction from the mayor's office and my direction from the police department, we're reporting out in the higher data. So I can't skew the data when it comes to homicides and shootings and reported robberies. I am sure 100% there's robberies that occurred out in the community that haven't been reported. No doubt. But I can tell you that we are pushing and educating our public to call the police and trust us. And that, again, that common denominator of non-report has been consistent throughout the last decade. And we're utilizing, again, ALPR to proactively investigate robberies even if they're not reported. So I reaching out to my community, if you are a victim of crime, please report it. It'll help with the accurate data. But again, to answer the question in regards to the violent crime, those numbers aren't skewed. Those are actual lives. Those are human beings. I think that's, is there another question regarding the data?
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on what's already been said about the data and just remind us that two truths can be true at the same time. So the city can still not feel safe enough, and the numbers can be real. So we were at 120 homicides and more during the pandemic. So what we are saying is that in comparison to where we have been in the past 5 or 6 years, the strategies that we are implementing are working. Again, we're not saying that we've reached our goal or that we've accomplished our vision of being the safest city in California. And so these two things are not at odds with one another. Every week that the leadership team meets, we recognize both truths, that we are making progress and that the strategies are working, and that is not enough, and that people still feel unsafe in the city of Oakland, and that 67 deaths is much, much too high and absolutely unacceptable. In regards to your question about what specific parts of violence intervention work, I just want to remind folks that community violence intervention work as a field has been around for several decades and has a growing body of research behind it. It's not just something that the city of Oakland thinks is interesting. It is 80 different jurisdictions with departments similar to the Department of Violence Prevention across the country coming together several times a year to check in on the data, the best practices, the promising practices. And without oversimplifying it, I think it comes down to two really important things. That if you follow the data and you follow the intelligence that tells you who is most likely to drive violence in the next 90 days, and you communicate very clearly and directly with those individuals the consequences of not putting the guns down, they have been given warning. And the vast majority of those individuals with warning are going to choose a different pathway. And so once they decide to choose a different pathway, about 75% of them that receive a direct message, Then it becomes an intensive case management model that addresses the root causes of violence. And I think that we can all probably agree that for each individual, the root causes of violence are different. And so our approach in the Department of Violence Prevention is very individualized and does an assessment of what is happening in that person's life that is driving violence. And it could be homelessness or housing insecurity. It could be mental health or substance use. It could be peer pressure, et cetera. And so the interventions are tailored to each individual. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a couple speakers who are going to need to move to other commitments, so we're going to take one more question here at the podium, and then we will break and take questions from folks who didn't get called on yet. We'll end with the green shirt in the back.
Of the feeling of safety within the community, that you're not sitting on hold for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, maybe more, waiting for someone to answer a 911 call to get either police or fire response.
Thank you for the question. Yes, I will hand it to Chief Beer, and then Councilmember Ramachandra wanted to speak to that question as well. Chief Beer?
Oh, great question. We did recognize that there was an issue with OPD's response in the 2 previous years, and in fact, we had a significant hiring push for our dispatchers and looked at additional technology to improve that response. I can tell you right now that next audit, we've already been conducting audits, and that response has improved, and it's more in line with the state standard. And I think a big portion of that has to do with staffing and just having dispatchers there, and we're continuing to recruit for additional dispatchers going forward. With regards to the beat boundaries, we've already recognized that as well, and that we've been in talks not just with the mayor's office and the city administrator, but previously there was a staffing study that showed that the Oakland Police Department should have 867 police officers just to continue status quo what we're doing right now with the officers we do have. We are in the works of actually hiring a outside firm to do the study into the restructure of the beats throughout the city. It should be noted that those beats were established decades ago. I mean, I think I'm going back into the late 50s, early 60s, and that's something that we are in the process of actually working with people to do a real in-depth study and look at the restructure of those beats so that the response would be equitable to the breakdown of how the city is comprised. However, knowing that, I can tell you that our officers are dispatched on a priority. All those calls come in, they're vetted, and officers are sent, whether it's a priority 1, priority 2 call, regardless of where it is in the city. When it comes to the response time, it's really due to the lack of staffing where we are. That's why when I go back to the previous question from Oakland side, that's our commitment to patrol, because that's the response. When you talk about 911 call, it's the uniformed officer in a police car that's responding, and that's why we had to restructure, fold some units, and it was painful. And it's going to be painful. We had to absorb our traffic enforcement unit. We had to absorb, and we're going to absorb our foot patrol and our community resource officers as well, because we have to be able to respond to those calls. And because of those units going back to patrol, and the increase of dispatchers, our response times are now back to the industry standard. Thank you.
Thank you. Just elaborating briefly on what Chief Peer just said. When I started on council in 2023, I called 911 probably 2 months into the job, and I waited 6 minutes on hold. And thankfully, at that moment, I was a witness to an accident. But I would hear stories from every corner of the district of how, in my moment of emergency, I had to wait on hold. 2023 is a very different time in this city hall than it is today in 2026. I repeatedly asked various staff members, department members, why are these times so low? Why do we have 20 vacancies in OPD dispatchers? And the answer seemed to be, well, no one just wants to apply to these jobs. And that seemed patently untrue. So I worked collaboratively with City Administrator Justin Johnson to dig for the truth and recognize where in the past the city had messed up. So in late 2023, we produced a report that showed the honest truth, which was for one entire year, from May 2022 to May 2023, the city missed out on 1,000 applications for these 911 dispatchers. And I was getting messages from people directly who applied to these jobs and said they had never heard back from the city. They were never interviewed. There were 1,000 applicants that we missed out on. And here's the silver lining. In 1 month from when we came out with this report, I filed public records requests. We did a lot of work to identify the problem and the failure that had happened in the HR processes. The number of vacant dispatchers went from 20 to 3. And that number has hovered a little around 3 in the past 2 years, but there is a glaring difference in our 911 response times from 2 years ago compared to today. Now, once you hire a dispatcher, there's an amount of training you have to do. You have to wait, 6 to 9 months to realize the effectiveness of that hire. And I think we're starting to see those results today, as Chief Beer said. In addition, of course, councils have approved 2 different resolutions last year that speak to improvements in technology in OPD's record management system, as well as the CAT system, and a couple of other things that I think are going to continue to drastically improve on that measure. But on a more positive note on those 911 dispatchers, I think that OPD is doing an excellent job maintaining that level of recruitment. There are naturally retention issues. There's people that leave, there's people that retire, there's people that move. But compared to 2 years ago when we had 20 vacancies, 2.5 years ago we had 20 vacancies, now hovering between 3 and 6 vacancies, I think is a sign that we're moving in the right direction forward and that we're going to continue to improve those responses and reduce the number of vacancies.
Thank you so much, Councilmember, and thank you for the great question. Thank you all for being here. We are going to close the program now. We'll stick around to take your questions directly, so please stick around. Thank you all for being here. Have a safe and warm and wonderful 2026.